Hello, I'm Mariana Cordier. Welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. As 2019 begins, gun control advocacy continues to be important to many young people who insist that the issue will not be forgotten. Fred Evans, who comments for this program, has some thoughts. The Friends of the Library, FOL, has an agenda to support our local libraries and all the benefits they bring to communities. Meeting the needs of many, Tom Thomson, the chairman of the board of directors, has the details. The Beacon has an interesting new approach to housing in its January housing issue. Stuart Rosenthal, the editor and publisher of the newspaper, will explain and also highlight other stories in this month's issue. The superintendent of schools has delivered his proposed 2020 operating budget to the Board of Education, and the community is preparing comments on what is funded correctly and what needs more money. Jane DeWinter will review this budget for us. Welcome back to the show, Fred. Thank you for being here. So tell us, what is the issue with young people and gun control? They're going to keep doing it, the advocacy for it, or has it lost its steam?
No, I don't think it will ever lose its steam. I think what has to occur is change because we continue to have examples of, quote, mass shootings, and we find out that people who do it have access to unbelievable weaponry that we have no control over. And these students, the ones we focused on were the group in Florida, in Parkland, Florida, where there was another school shooting. So
these young people in Parkland, and I know they encouraged and helped, unite many high school students, middle school students, parents who are really concerned about safety in the schools. What kind of impact has that had?
Well, I think it's had an impact, but what I don't see in my frustration is change. I was I was a high school principal, and the one event that will last forever in my being is Columbine, that occurred in 1999 when I was a principal of a high school. And we are still going through that. In fact, it's gotten more pronounced and worse. And we don't seem to want to control the accessibility, the heaven weaponry that has no use, and we need to have better controls. Paul Schwartz, what prompted me to reach out to more people, Paul Schwartz wrote an article in the Sentinel newspaper about, he had 26 suggestions for how we can better control the weaponry. I mean, other countries have done it, and we don't seem to have an interest because of, quote, the Second Amendment, and the strength and power of, frankly, the NRA.
So out of the article, for those of us who have not read it, I have not had a chance, what are the top three that struck you as most plausible to apply?
Well, I think they're all top, but I think the monitoring of the purchase, the easiness with which someone can purchase a weapon would be number one, a better monitoring system. He's also suggesting increases in AFTA. AFTA is I forget what the acronym is for.
American Federal?
No. It's the organization that protects us from Border Patrol and all those kinds of things, increasing more of those in terms of the confiscation of weaponry. And I don't know enough about that yet, but there are other things, just getting information out to people, the heavy magazines, there's no need for people to be able to purchase those kinds of weapons.
Sure.
There's so many, though, already out there. I mean, there's
in fact, there's been a rush to buy them because of the attempts to crack down on it. And kids get access to it because their parents aren't careful with locking things away. I mean,
He mentioned topics like that about lock boxes and all of those kinds of things that are. It's got to be a national movement. It can't be just one size fits all, because one size doesn't fit all. There are avid gun owners who aren't a danger to the public, but then there are those who are a danger to the public.
Well, it surprises me that any parent would think that they're, even locking a gun up is safe, because we know that routinely kids are able to, borrow cars without, when they don't have permission. They get into your alcohol, they get into everything else. Are there specific things or like additional steps parents should be taking?
Yeah.
Well, what I like is that none of the topic has been focusing either on mental health, and that's a touchy subject, because when we look at these different incidents, what is it in a low class, middle class, or high? So we tend to
most school shootings, a great majority of them are happening in middle class communities. I believe I'm accurate on that, and they have been extensive. 153 in this past year and a half, I believe the accurate number is. So from my perspective, being a school principal, you have to have the kids have to feel comfortable with coming to adults if they know something's happening. It's a whole process. It just can't be a one size fits all.
Does a metal detector at the door have any impact on that?
Oh, I think it does have an impact, making it more difficult to get into a building. But once again, that one thing isn't a guarantee. It's how you monitor someone who's having mental health issues,
Sure.
or who makes a threat to a classmate. What does that classmate do? Who does he go to?
In the last 30 seconds, what would you recommend for those interested in wanting to continue to participate in this conversation and advocacy? What should they do?
I think one thing we have to, the major group we have to start to influence are our national leaders, our senators, our congressmen, in terms of making substantive change. Maryland has taken some important steps, and we need to do that nationally.
Well, thank you so much, and I hope we can continue this conversation on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, Friends of the Library, so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. It's
and
good to be here.
Congratulations as the new chairman.
Well, continuing.
Oh, continuing chairman, sorry.
No problem.
So tell us, what's going on with the Friends of the Library community activities that are planned?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of things going on with the Friends of the Library in Montgomery County. I'm going to focus on three of them, really. Our role is to support the public library system. We raise funds for it. We publicize what they do. We support what they do, and so forth.
And I have to say that we really appreciate having such great libraries here in Montgomery County, and the staff and everyone's been so fantastic. So we really appreciate it.
It's a nationally award-winning public library system. It's a great system, great staff, supported by the Montgomery County Library Board, which is appointed by the county executive, and then there's the library advisory councils, which are in each branch, which also provides input from the community about library services and so forth. And we have chapters at the branches as well. But the three things I'd like to point to that I think are really important for everybody who loves books and libraries, starting this coming February is Library Lovers Month. Now that is a very big deal. For all of us who love libraries, books, reading, and everything about libraries, this is the time to really celebrate the existence of our public library system. And that'll start on the 2nd of February. The kickoff event will be at the Gaithersburg branch, which will be co-sponsored by the Friends of the Library chapter in Gaithersburg and the Montgomery County Library Board.
So what is exactly going to happen?
Oh, there's going to be music provided by Alex and the Kaleidoscope, which is a lot of fun.
Cool.
And there'll be events for children and for adults and so forth. And there'll be events over the course of the month as well at different branches as well. So it's a very, very big deal. Both adults and kids will be able to make posters about, we love libraries, and sign postcards which are sent to our county legislators and so forth, particularly those who've just come into office, to let them know that people love libraries and support them.
That reminds me, I know you're going to tell us about some other activities, but I wanted to touch on if people want to be more involved or they see something in their community library that they think could be better or want to comment on, how do they go about doing that?
Probably the best way to do that is to contact your local library advisory committees, which are at each branch. These are made up of community people who volunteer their time to be able to collect information, pass that on to the library staff and also to the library board as well. And the library board, their role is to advise the county executive on issues related to the libraries. That's probably the best way and easiest way.
That's great. And so what are the other two activities that you wanted to comment on?
Well, there's two, and the first one is really one of my favorites. It's called Vinyl Day. And Vinyl Day is going to be in April. And it's
For those who don't know, those are records.
I know that.
I think everyone here knows, but just in case you don't know what a record is, it's a vinyl.
Well, a lot of people do. I mean, they're flying off the shelves, and particularly millennials and others, including the rest of us who've had records, still buy them. But what it is, it's a big celebration about vinyl records, and it's going to be held at the Silver Spring branch. And it's going to have people there from the record industry, music industry, talking about the industry. There's going to be obviously a little bit of retro, historic perspective on a lot of these things. There's going to be a maker space there where, decommissioned records are going to be used for making things and so forth. So for the kids particularly, it's a blast. And plus you can buy records there too, as well.
So basically you're going to be promoting vinyl, but like smashing it.
Well, kind of, but it's just
It's
a
a
fun
multi-purpose item.
Yes.
It's also about promoting music and culture and so forth,
Yeah.
and it's really a lot of fun. And lastly, I'd like to talk about one big event we have, which is called Library After Dark, and that's held in April. That's a real big event that we hold each year, and the primary focus behind that is to honor the library staff. And particularly people that the library staff themselves vote as having done some work above and beyond the call of duty. And we also give an award to a community organization that's provided gone above and beyond the call of duty to support public libraries as well. It's a great event. It's a lot of fun.
And that's at the
Rockville branch,
Library.
yes.
April
13th. That's correct.
What are some of the organizations that, community organizations that potentially could be awarded, and what kinds of things do they do?
Well, in the past, we've honored a couple different organizations. One organization actually was our first award went to the landlord where one of our bookstores is located over in Rockville, who's been just an absolute friend to us. In terms of, and really encouraged us to do things, to build out our library and provided us support and storage for things, which he didn't have to do, and he just did it because he really likes libraries and supports what we're trying to achieve. And we've also given out awards. I believe one award went to the Gaithersburg Book Festival as well, which was hosted by the city of Gaithersburg.
And it's a big event.
A very big event, and it's well supported by the Gaithersburg City Council, the mayor, and the community. It's a real big deal every year.
So you have 15 seconds left. What is the last word on Friends of the Library?
Well, the last word is we would very much like to encourage people to use our public library system. And it's a great system, and there's just so much there, and encourage you to go to their website to see what's there.
Thank you so much.
You're
I
very
appreciate it, and I hope you'll come back on the show.
Thank you.
We have to take a break. Be right back.
Mom, can we get some ice cream? Please, Mom, please.
No, we're having dinner soon.
Please.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of children in foster care who will take you just as you are.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 88. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
For those dealing with the daily struggles of caring for a loved one, we hear you. That's why AARP created a community with experts and other caregivers to help us better care for ourselves and the ones we love.
Getting closer to nature can get you closer to your family. Go to discovertheforest.org.
And we're back. Stuart, I'm so glad you're here. The Beacon is such a wonderful newspaper. Thank you for coming and telling us the stories.
Always a pleasure.
So tell us, what is the housing stories that we have for the January edition?
Sure. As you may know, once a quarter we have a special pull-out section called Housing and Home Care Options, where we talk about a whole range of things for people who are staying in their home or moving or whatever. And the lead story this time is about a new service. It's about a year old in the country, but it's new to the Washington area, called Silvernest. It's an online website that it's a matchmaker for homeowners and people who want affordable housing.
So you have now, coming to Montgomery County, according to the article, a service that will match renters, I guess, with
Yes, exactly,
homeowners?
right. So you have homeowners who have extra space, mostly older people perhaps who need some help around the house perhaps, or who have a lot of extra space, or they want to bring in a little extra money to help them stay in their home as they age. And you have young people or even middle-aged people who are looking for affordable housing, who don't mind helping people out a little bit or don't want to be living by themselves either, and they bring them together. And it's a wonderful service.
I have to admit, it sounds a little bit scary because, I mean, as an older person in a home, you don't know the person, you don't know where they're from, what they're like.
I totally get that, and they've got it too because they have a special security system there where they do background checks. For $30, they'll do a complete background check, criminal record, eviction notices, sex offender status, whatever. And they tell you, they make sure they know the people who are saying, this is who I am, really are. And that helps pull people together too. And then they have a service also where they can handle the bill paying automatically, so you don't have to ask them for a check each month, and that there's also a relationship counselor on board that they can intervene if there's any kind of a dispute or a problem. And they have 17,000 real estate lawyers on call also all over the country, so if there's ever a need for 1,000, if it's a whole big so if you need help with a lease or you have help with a legal issue or someone needs to sue somebody, God forbid, whatever, it's all provided as part of the service, and it's very inexpensive.
Does the screening, is that just for the people who are looking to rent space, or is it also the owners?
It's my understanding that either party can require it of the other.
Okay.
So I mean, that's usually the homeowners requiring it of the
right. But the other thing
could work both ways too. You don't want to end up in a bad situation. So again, you want to draft an agreement, and they have all this legal ability to do that and help you cover any possibilities of things not working out.
Right.
It sounds fantastic, but as a lawyer, I can see it fraught with problems. But I guess the important thing is also for family members to keep an eye on that elderly person as well.
Sure.
If you want to rent out a room in your house, are there any legal hoops or things that you need to do?
If you own the house, generally speaking, that's all right. Although if you're in part of a housing development where there's a homeowners association, they might have some rules about that. If you're in a condo, they probably have rules about that. If you're already yourself renting and want to sublet, you might have an issue with that. But they've had people do that very thing. They have 2-bedroom condos who rent one of the bedrooms out, that kind of thing.
And what about the other stories?
Oh, lots of interesting things.
Tell me something interesting.
Our cover story is about the Wizards. They've sort of changed their whole halftime routine now. They have different groups. Instead of having the Wizard girls, they now have a co-ed.
Wizards, right?
Yes, right. They now have a co-ed group called the Wizard Dancers. They have a youth group called the Wiz Kids, and they have a senior dance troupe called the Wisdom, W-I-Z-D-O-M. These are 20 people between 50 and 76 who entertain at halftime shows with all kinds of great numbers, including hip hop and all kinds of stuff. So it's new for them, a lot of them. We interviewed a few of the people. One of them was a cheerleader in high school. And here she is now in her 60s, and she's getting back, and she's doing splits, and she's sort of going all back to the whole. Yeah, so she's very excited. So it's a wonderful opportunity for people to really be out there and show what older folks can do.
Do they at the games? Do they rotate which group, or do they have all of the groups?
I don't think they all perform all. No, I think it's occasionally.
Oh, okay.
Especially these special groups. Yeah.
When are the tryouts? In case
the tryouts were well.
I wanna
It'd
see
be
Clay
great.
do the
They need
splits.
more men, actually. They have only one guy out of the 20 people.
There you go.
The tryouts were last June, I think. They had 50 some odd people try out for the 20 slots.
How has the public responded to all this?
Apparently very excitedly. They claim that it's really been a wonderful reception to everybody. I mean, they pat them on the back and they cheer them when they come back to their seats, and they think this is really great. You know, I don't know whether they're going to want to do it at every single game. I don't know how many times they plan to use it, but I think it's a great idea, and it's got some people inspired, which is what's nice.
That's awesome. And so, the last bit.
Okay, travel section. We have a very interesting story. Have time for different kinds of cruises, very unusual kinds of cruises. A windjammer in Maine with a tall ship with sails, and you can help sail the thing. There's in Vietnam they have this a junk, a traditional Vietnamese ship that plies through the waters there, which is apparently beautiful scenery. There's freighters. You can get a room on a freighter, which is where it's not really a cruise, but you have food. You eat with the sailors. You get to meet them. You help them out with what they're doing. It's a whole different experience for people, and it goes for months sometimes.
And so, if people want to know,
Pick up the beacon anywhere. There's 1,500 free distribution sites. If you can't find one, call us at our office, and we'll tell you where you can find a copy near where you live.
thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you being on with us.
Sure.
Jane, you got the budget for the schools.
Right.
Is that right?
Yes. So in December, the superintendent releases, it's traditional to release his proposed budget for the upcoming year. So of course, right now we're in fiscal year 19, and so this is a budget for FY 20.
Which starts in the fall.
Which would start July 1.
July 1.
Okay.
So
July
we're,
1,
so
19.
we're clear. We're talking about the 2020 budget that
Right.
was
Right.
released, and so I heard that there's a video out to explain it to people.
Right. If there's a video on the school system's website with the superintendent's presentation of the budget, with sort of explaining what his themes and priorities are, and it's also available in Spanish too, so that if you're just interested, if you're not somebody who wants to peruse, like a whole big thing of book of numbers, you can, look at the video and, get a sense of what's going on.
And Jane, what's the size of that budget? What's the
Right. Well, the
grand
current
total?
budget is $2,600 and some million, yes. And so for 2020, which that just sounds very weird saying 2020, he's proposing a 2.1% increase overall, so it would be 2.6 and kind of a half billion, which is a pretty modest increase when you consider that some of Jerry Wiest's budget were, like a 9% increase.
So are there any highlights or things that jump out of you that you've noticed in the budget?
Well, the main portion of the proposed increase is to deal with enrollment growth. And most people are aware that the school system has been, enrollment has been increasing for several, quite a few years. It's still projected to have about 1,100 more students next year, but that is a, slower, right, it's growth, but it's slower growth because it had been over 2,000 a year for several years in a row.
And this is the operating budget, not the capital budget.
This is the operating budget. So this is basically all the personnel that are in the schools, people in the central office who are working on curriculum, who are working on oversight.
Does it include any of the programs?
It doesn't include really new programs. It does include sort of some additional personnel in, say, areas that, like we were touching on mental health, like pupil personnel workers and school psychologists, and so that there's an increase in that. But, it's like, 3 more people for the whole system.
Are there areas in the budget that could use more funds that stand out to you, and areas that need to be addressed?
Well, I think that we haven't had all the testimony, so there's going to be a whole lot of very active school advocates who are going to point all that out. But I think that overall, I think we still haven't returned to the lower class sizes that we had before the last recession even. So there's that. The school system is still, implementing school security. I mean, they've moved ahead on a lot of that, and that actually is more in the capital budget.
Is there more in our budgets now as a response to what Fred was talking about gun control? security measures?
Right, and that does tend to fall more in the capital budget, but yes, I mean, schools are all supposed to have the double door system and with the little camera and the buzzer, so that once kids are in the building in the morning, and personnel are in the building, then the doors are locked and you're supposed to buzz in. Of course, some of the older schools where they weren't built with 2 sets of doors. They're still working on that, so that those things are phasing in. But they all have that system now, and doors are supposed to be locked elsewhere around the schools.
We talked earlier about guns. Are there metal detectors? Is that an issue?
No, we don't have metal detectors in schools. I mean,
there are schools that will scan sometimes at events.
Right, yeah, that they'll have the
but
wand scanners,
have the wand,
like
but
at football games and
it's
things.
not a systemic procedure, so to speak.
There has been more, increases in the number of security cameras that are placed in hallways in, like middle schools and high schools, but those are not actively live monitored, right? So it's more like if somebody reports that something happened, they can go back.
So in the last bit that we have of the show, if someone wanted to comment or was interested, what is the quick version of how they participate in doing that?
Well, there's testimony, and so I believe that it's next week, at least 2 evenings, and so you can call the Board of Education and sign up for a slot. If you're just a run-of-the-mill person, I think you get 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes or something.
Thank you so much, Jane. I really appreciate it and hope you'll come back and tell us more about the budget.
I will.
Thank you all for joining me this week, and thank you for joining us all for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Mariana Cordier. Please join us next week at this same time.